If you hunt long enough, unfortunately, wounding an animal is going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's when. Yes, it sucks, it's heartbreaking, it's real, and it just happened to me. What you choose to do next is where the story can take a sharp turn, for better or for worse. In this Thrive episode, I'm going to take you deep into the thick, where hope fades and second chances are rare. A blood tracking dog named Maggie changed everything and rewrote the ending to my Missouri whitetail hunt. This is the Thrive Vodcast, and this one's personal. Let's get to it. I've been hunting Midwest whitetails for 4 decades now. I've been chasing big game across the Western landscape for more than 30 years. There's one reality that virtually every hunter eventually faces. No one is immune to a marginal or bad shot. Maybe it's a deflection, it's a poor angle, a rushed moment, bad judgment, or just plain bad luck. The blood trail vanishes, light has faded, and suddenly you're on your hands and knees hoping for a miracle. There are only 2 kinds of hunters, ones who know this gut-wrenching feeling and those who will. What if you had one more tool in your toolbox? What if there was a way to dramatically increase your chances of recovering a wounded animal? What if you could bring in a blood tracking dog to take over when your eyes, your boots, and your headlamp fall short? I did just that on my recent whitetail hunt in Missouri. I had heard of tracking dogs before, but I'd never really considered using one. Looking back, what a huge mistake. Several years back, I lost the biggest whitetail I've ever shot, an absolute dinosaur. It was a mortal shot for sure, and I looked for that buck for 5 straight days. I was sick over it. Hell, I'm still sick over it. After what I witnessed on this last hunt, I'm now convinced I would have found that once-in-a-lifetime buck if I'd have been smart enough to call in Maggie or Paisley. I've been one of the lucky ones with only a couple of wounded big game animals in 40 plus years of hunting, but it does happen, and it just happened to me in Missouri. I only had 3 days to get this hunt done. My hunting buddy Joe, who lives in Missouri, kept sending me these giant bucks on trail camera, so I booked a flight, left Brian Call at home, and selfishly went by myself. I mean, why would I share giant bucks with Call? He will only shoot them out from underneath me like he did last year on our Missouri hunt. Joe put me in a spot on one of his properties. It was a ladder stand, which I hate, and the condition of the vintage straps on that stand left a few things to be desired. I began to wonder if he was trying to kill me off. Let's just say it's been a while since anyone has been in this stand, and I double-checked my safety harness more than once. The first buck came through very early morning, exiting some tall switchgrass into a clover patch that surrounded the stand. The buck passed right under me and eventually got downwind and spooked a bit. This bigger buck entered the picture just a few minutes later, far down at the bottom of this tall grass patch. He eventually worked his way over to and crossed paths with that first buck. His posture changed immediately, and I hit my grunt call, and that's all it was needed. The bigger buck came on a rope on the same track as the previous buck and approached from a difficult left-handed shooter side. Even so, I'm making no excuses. I've killed a pile of nice whitetails, and I know how to position myself better than I did. When I drew on this buck the first time, somehow my peep sight got turned. I freaking hate that. I had to let down with the buck standing broadside at just 20 yards. Somehow, with the grace of God, I got the bow let down without being detected, and I was able to straighten out my peep and draw a second time on this buck. By now, he had moved a bit further into an even tougher left-handed position, and he was only seconds away from catching my wind cone like the previous buck. He was now standing at 24 yards. Did I rush the shot? Probably. I did not get my pins settled on his shoulder for some reason. I released the arrow too early as I swung my pin from back to front. The arrow disappeared just behind his ribcage on the midline of that buck. He deserved better, and I know better. Those were the cards I was dealt. I was able to watch this incredible buck run downhill along the switchgrass for about 125 yards, and then he made a hard left turn into what I already knew was a freaking jungle. He was hit hard, the arrow passed through, but the buck showed no sign of giving up anytime soon. That is what I was left with. I was setting up in that stand, fuming and having a pity party for a minute or two. I got down, retrieved my arrow, and all I found was that greasy, slightly pink, sticky, smelly arrow that you never want to find. Dang, it was depressing. I found first blood at about 75 yards down the path. It was nothing to write home about, so I backed out, went back to the truck, and I called Joe to confess my sins. I decided to leave that buck alone for most of the day. Then I remembered a conversation I had on my Wyoming elk hunt this year with my good friend Josh Smunk about his blood tracking dog and the organization he belongs to. I called him, told him my situation, and he gave me the United Blood Trackers website, and he told me to download the TRAKR app to my phone. I downloaded the application, started a new tracking request, which involved answering a few key questions about the shot, the situation, and then I submitted the request. Literally less than an hour later, I got 2 promising responses. Marlee was the closest, so I called her back. This young lady was a breath of fresh air. She was so versed in blood tracking, shot placement, recovery percentages, the whole gamut. She asked me more questions about how the situation unfolded. It was quickly becoming obvious that she had a ton of experience. After we reviewed the debacle, I told her Joe and I thought there was about a 30% chance of recovery. She promptly told me it was more like 70 to 80%. I mean, who was I to argue? I was surprised, yes, but she is the expert. I've been hunting a long time, and I've seen a lot of wounded animal horror stories unfold. To say I was skeptical at this point is an understatement, but my options, they were limited. You see, one of my biggest hurdles was the fact that I shot this buck in an urban industrial environment on a relatively small parcel of land, about 50 acres. The property is bordered by 2 major highways, a housing development, and a very busy truck stop. Pursuing and pushing this deer was not going to work out very well. Marlee told me her recommendation was to let the deer set for 24 hours. I was good with that plan, and we met at dawn the next day. Marlee was right on time, and again, her knowledge and experience were impressive. She knew what she was talking about, and I learned a lot before we even got rolling. She brought 2 of her tracking dogs. Both of them are mixed breeds, which was also surprising, but she says she likes them the best. Marlee asked me if I minded if she tried her new puppy in training first to see if she could pull off the hat trick. The puppy, Maggie, was pretty darn cute, so how could I say no? So we left Paisley, her certified 10-year-old A-team, in the truck, at least for starters. Paisley was probably not happy about being benched, but she did not complain. Let's take a look at a brief video of Marlee and me talking about the situation and the tracking process. I shoot a buck yesterday. It was wasn't my finest moment. I thought I was swinging right to the front. And I don't know if I pulled the trigger a little too early or what, so I hit him right behind the rib cage. I think we were looking at your chart. I'll download it and show everybody. It's a C8 or whatever it was, right? So anyway, I got online, punched in the TRAKR app. Boom, Marlee comes up, and you responded like immediately. Here we are. We're on the property, and you're here, and we got this new guy, or new girl.
New girl.
And but you brought in the heavy hitter backup in case we have
heavy hitter backups in the truck. This is Maggie. She is a 1-year-old Beagle, Basset, Catahoula, Mountain Cur, Foxhound mix.
Special breeds for this, right? They got to have at least 7 different.
I like a good mix. A lot of people like to track with full-blood breeds, and I like good mixes. My A-team in the truck is a Beagle Dachshund mix, and so I stuck with it.
So how long have you been doing this?
6 years. And the A-team in the truck is one of 8 in the country that's got all 4 certifications.
Oh, man. You're making me feel better. Although we don't know for sure, but I'm classifying this as a kind of a gut shot.
Yeah.
Maybe nick the liver, who knows? I'm hoping. But it was interesting when I talked to you yesterday. I told Joe when we got done, I had a 30% chance.
If you would have told me early season you had a gut shot, my percentage would have been higher. Probably more like in the 90s.
Explain that. So during the rut, they just got more dry, more adrenaline, other bucks are messing with them, or
so many different factors. So we've got ruts, we've got adrenaline, we've got testosterone, and all they're thinking about is chase and tail. So a lot of times there's not a whole lot of pain receptors in the gut, in the rear gut sometimes. So they don't even know that they're hit.
So they just won't even lay down like they normally would. They just keep going.
Right. And a tracking dog is going off mostly. It's like a puzzle, right? You got blood, you got gut juice, and there's a gland in between the toes of a deer called the interdigital gland that releases a different pheromone when they're mortally wounded or really hurt and potentially going to die. And sometimes on these rear gut hits during the rut, they do not put up that pheromone. The only reason I've got tracking dogs is because I lost my own deer, and the weight sucks. But I want to do everything that I can to help you put your hands on the antlers.
Well, it's going to be great. We're going to have fun doing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get after it.
Yeah.
It did not take long for Maggie to get to work. We went to the first spot of blood I found, and you could tell immediately that Maggie, only 8 months old, was locked on. She tracked and checked herself over and over again. It was rinse and repeat for a couple of 100 yards. It was immediately obvious that this deer was headed for the thickest, nastiest stuff on the property. Within a couple of 100 yards, the deer started making 90-degree right and left turns. These maneuvers would have been almost impossible for us to stay on the track. Maggie, she was undeterred. At this point, we were literally finding blood spots every 50 to 75 yards. Again, virtually impossible to track with human eyes alone. The deer got deeper and deeper into the thick, and Maggie was now locked solid on the track. It was so fun to watch that little dog do her work. Her efficiency was so impressive. It's pretty rare to see a puppy like that being all business. The law in most states requires that the tracking dog stay on a long lead, and that did not seem to slow Maggie's progress at all. As we twisted and turned through the tangled jungle on this property, Joe and I were discussing the ability of an infrared drone to actually find a deer with this kind of thick, green overhead canopy of vegetation. We don't have any experience to pull from, but once I saw this dog working this track, I knew we made the right decision. Maggie made quick work of this track, and we got the thumbs up from Marley ahead of us only 30 minutes into the adventure. All I can say is that it was impressive, and that we would have probably never found this deer. He put himself in an absolute thicket. We would have been lucky to even stumble upon him doing a visual grid search. Unfortunately, coyotes are a problem, a real problem in Missouri. It's hard to believe that in just a few short hours, they found my deer and made quick work of the back end. This was a hard pill to swallow, but it's a reality of hunting Missouri. Over the years, I've shot a couple of Missouri deer that I started tracking quickly. Within an hour, I found them within 400 yards, and coyotes had already messed with them. It's crazy, really. As Marley said, the longer the deer track, the higher the odds the coyotes will find it. Overall, it was a great experience, and I have a newfound appreciation for these tracking dogs. In the future, I will not hesitate to bring one in. To be honest, if I ever have another marginal shot situation again, I'm calling one in immediately. I feel like as hunters, we have to use all the tools at our disposal and do everything we can to recover every animal we shoot. No visible blood trail, that doesn't always matter. These blood tracking recovery dogs, they're not just sniffing blood spots. They are specifically trained to follow the faintest scent trails left by wounded animals. Marley told us that these dogs actually follow interdigital gland scent, adrenaline scent, and even a chemical change in a wounded animal's track. Well-trained dogs, they can track up to 40 hours after the shot, even through rain and snow. These dogs are built to go to work when you've got nothing else to go on. Fortunately, according to the United Blood Trackers website, it is legal to use blood tracking dogs in most states. Each state has a few specific requirements that need to be fleshed out. Finding and contacting a certified tracker was much easier than I realized, and the cost, it was very reasonable. I've included links to the United Blood Trackers website, the TRAKR Application page, and a few other tracking associations and organizations. When I was compiling this show, I briefly looked through the available trackers in several areas. There are tracking handlers and dogs in so many places, and several options in most areas. This is a very viable option for you to consider when the chips are down on a marginal or poor shot. I highly recommend you consider using them if you're ever in the situation I found myself. The Hunting Public podcast did a great show on the TRAKR application. This is one you might want to check out. I've included a link to that podcast in the text description below. In an upcoming Thrive Vodcast, I'm planning to bring Marley on to talk about recovery percentages, shot placements, broadhead results, success rates, the whole deal. She has already done over 50 recovery tracks this season. In fact, she was heading out for another track job after we wrapped up mine. You don't track that many animals and not learn a thing or two. I think you will find this upcoming episode incredibly informative and eye-opening. While I was prepping for this Thrive episode, I got a text from the Peax crew, and sure enough, they put another tank of an aoudad on the ground. I wanted to throw out a quick congrats to Kime, Jeff, and Bryce for getting it done on another old monarch. Apparently, these hunts are starting to take a toll on Bryce. They are obviously getting harder and harder on him. I mean, with friends sending out clips like these, who needs enemies? In all seriousness, congratulations, Bryce, on another great aoudad. If you have not checked out the movie $1 Million from last year's hunt, you should. It's a must-watch Peax exclusive film. I dropped a link to that movie in the text description below. Go check it out.
Name is Brian Call. In the last 10 years, they've been a hell of a ride.
I was getting worried for a minute. We saw the bird like,
Heck yeah, man.
he's a nice bear, Mark. That's a nice bear.
Years ago, I was standing right here, watching this bear.
Look at that noggin. Congrats, man. That looks like a grizzly bear. Check that out, dude.
I didn't know it at the time, but this was the beginning of a decade-long obsession.
Every shot we release comes with more than just hope. It carries responsibility. We owe it to the animals we pursue to do everything in our power to recover them. What I learned on this hunt, yes, it was humbling. And honestly, it was long overdue. Blood tracking dogs like Maggie aren't just helpful, they're essential when the trail goes cold. If you're serious about hunting, you got to be serious about the recovery. If you're enjoying the Thrive Vodcast, please subscribe to the Peax YouTube channel and drop a comment. I want to hear your thoughts and suggestions. Don't forget to use the code Treeline for a discount on all of your Peax equipment gear. Get out there and get after it. I'll see you next time. This is the Peax Thrive Vodcast, raw, real, built for Western hunters.